Planting potatoes is so easy. You don't need any special skills or experience or even a lot of space to plant potatoes. Today I'm going to show you how you can plant potatoes in containers no matter where you live. You're in the garden with Patrick. So before we get into the actual planting of our potatoes in the containers, let's go over some real basic details. The first most important is there's a ton of different varieties of potatoes. They actually have determinate and indeterminate potatoes. And I haven't found a whole lot of information on the types of varieties, but just know that there is a determinate and indeterminate variety of potatoes. So, there is some literature that you can find is there's basically three types of potatoes. There's early season, mid-season, and then we also have a late season potato. It's the spring right now for me here in zone 8A, and what we're going to be planting the potatoes in containers. You can do this so easy. You don't need a lot of space and they grow amazing. So you can also put them in a bed if you have a larger bed, but again, I have a lot of things planned for my bed back here. So I'm going to plant my potatoes in a container, and I've done this before and had very good results. So what you're going to look for is the 70-day variety. Now you could Google that or if you want, but most of the potatoes that you're going to be looking at, the two that you're going to find is a seed potato, which you're going to find usually at your big box store or your nursery. It's going to it says seed potatoes. You can also use, a big question that I get all the time is, can I use potatoes from the grocery store and put them in my container gardens? And the simple answer is yes, you can. You want to get organic potatoes, and you can use any variety that you want. The reason you want to use organic is because a lot of times the other potatoes will be sprayed with some chemicals that don't allow them to sprout. So those won't sprout for you. But again, you're going to look for some of these potatoes. If you have some in your cupboard right now, actually, you could probably plant them and do really well. So we're going to show you how to do that. Potatoes grow best when they're grown in 60 to 70 degree nights. So again, you can plant them a little earlier, but it's not going to matter that much if it's a couple of weeks before your last frost. Once the greens start to grow up, then that's when you have to be a little bit careful in regards to the frost. But again, if you plant a little early and there's a light freeze or something like that, it's not going to kill necessarily the potatoes. So they really thrive in 8 to 10 hours of sunlight. So when you plant your potatoes, again, that's why I love planting in containers, because again, the sun moves different areas during the summer and spring, and so you can move those containers to different areas where it's going to get that 8 to 10 hours of sunlight. You're also going to keep in mind that potatoes are very heavy feeders, and what that means is they like a lot of fertilizer. So they like also very light, fluffy, loamy soil. So you're going to make sure that you don't want to have compacted soil. You're going to use a soil that's light, potting soil almost, if you will. And I'll put a link below in how I make my own potting soil for very inexpensive cost, and you can do that too. It's really, really simple. So you want to have a light, fluffy, loamy container mix, if you will, and you're going to have, there's again tons of different methods that you'll see on how to actually plant these potatoes. Now, what I have found is simple, easy, is you're going to put the potatoes in. We're going to go over this in a second, and you just kind of put them in, put the soil in, and you're going to forget them. I have done other methods, which is with the building up of the soil over time. I'll show you a link here of how I kind of did that in a previous video. But again, it's just more work for you. So you can do this method that I'm going to show you today. Really simple. You just kind of put them in, and as long as you keep them fairly watered and not really soaking wet, they're going to do fine. So we're going to show you the different types of containers that I'm growing in here. Again, it doesn't matter as much the sizes that you're going to be doing. It does matter how many potatoes you're going to put in each container. So some of these, you know, maybe you have a 10-gallon. I would probably do no smaller than a 5-gallon, but you can use a 10-gallon grow bag. You can, again, I found these plastic bins. They were, you know, actually they were sitting around the house, so we're going to utilize those. And again, something that I purchased at or actually found at the nursery that was given away. So you can plant in any kind of container. All right, so let's talk about your planting of the potatoes. So again, I purchased these at the big box store, and they're pretty inexpensive. And I got 2 varieties. That's a nice thing about looking at some of these different places. You can purchase these online. You can also go to the grocery store if you have a favorite potato that you use, and just grab it and plant it. So this is a process of what they call chitting. Okay, so if you see these potatoes that are maybe in your pantry that have the growth, the green growth, a couple of, they call them the eyes, if you will. These are what they call chitting. And so you're going to want to chit your potatoes. If you don't have this little bit of growth, then you probably won't be very successful. So you want to let this grow a little bit. And then again, there's a lot of different methods. If you have a small potato like this, I would just put this potato right directly into the soil. If you have a larger potato, say for example, in this case, this isn't necessarily a larger potato per se, although you can see the differences in the size. But some people have cut these in half, and you can place, that way you have more potatoes that you can potentially grow. The issue with this is that when you're going to, you don't want to cut this and then place it directly into the ground. You want to make sure that you cut this and let it sit out, and the potato will kind of develop a little scab on the part where you cut, and then that allows the potato to not rot, essentially. So, but for today, we're going to just be placing these purple and red potatoes into our container mix, and I'll show you how we're going to do that and how easy that is to do. Again, on the back, it tells you what to do, but I'm going to show you really simple how easy it is. Now, when you're doing your potatoes, remember you want to have a rich, loamy or loamy type of soil that is rich in organic materials, and you want to have a good quality compost added to that soil. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, potatoes are heavy feeders, so you're going to want to add an organic granular fertilizer. Again, it doesn't have to be anything simple. Buy what's on sale. If you find something that's really inexpensive and cheap, get something like that. This particular one is a real simple 3-4-4. And remember, we said that they're very heavy feeders, and they really like a lot of potassium. So there are some studies that said that they grow better with potassium. But regardless, even if you just put a general fertilizer, remember you want to put that in there. So we're going to show you how to do that. And sometimes you do want to have a little bit more acidic soil. Potatoes tend to do a little bit better in a more acidic soil. Peat moss will lower the pH and make your soil more acidic. So depending on what your mix is and what you're putting in there, and then essentially you're in 70 days you're going to have some potatoes. We'll show you. So if you make sure you subscribe to the channel, we'll continue to do ongoing videos on the harvest at the end, and I'm going to do a really comprehensive video on everything that you really need to know. But today we're talking about simple container planting of potatoes. So this is another example of a 10-gallon bag that you can put your potatoes in. I'm going to use this for something else. But here we have in our red container, I'm going to put red potatoes. And in our black container here, which is a little larger, I have a little bit more of the purple potatoes, and we're going to put those in here. So here's what you're going to do in your container. You're going to take about 3 or 4 inches of your soil, and you're going to put that in your container, okay? Then once you get your container full with the 3 to 4 inches of your soil, what I like to do is, again, I'm going to put just a handful. You don't have to measure, you don't have to do anything really specific, but I'm putting a handful of my worm castings, and then I'm going to put a handful of the organic granular fertilizer. So we just take a handful of that granular fertilizer, kind of put that in there, and again, then you just mix that up. And that is where you're going to place your potatoes. You're going to make sure that when you place your potatoes that this green growth is up. Okay, you don't want to put them this way. That's not a root. This is where your actual green is going to be coming up. And again, I'm going to set them out here just so we can kind of get some spacing, and then we'll show you how those are going to go in there. And we'll do something like that. There's no specific thing that you're going to be doing as far as, you know, the spacing. You're just kind of whatever kind of potatoes. But again, in this particular large container, I'm putting five potatoes. So once you do that, then you're just basically going to put those down about maybe 3 to 4 inches. Okay, and again, nothing special. Make sure that those plant parts are up. You can bury these completely. They don't have to be up out of the soil, because again, they're going to grow through there. And we just put that one through here. Also do want to recommend that you do put holes in the bottom. I didn't show you that, but these both have holes in the bottom of the containers so that you have a lot of drainage, so that this doesn't get too saturated. So there's our basic setup as far as how to plant them. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to take soil, and you're going to put the soil, I'm going to show you that just a second. Well, I'm going to plant these other ones, but you're going to take your soil, you're going to put it maybe 3 inches or so up to the top here. I'm going to take 3 to 4 inches at the top, and I'm going to put some mulch, because it is dry in this area that I'm in, and we want to make sure that that soil stays moist. Then you can we'll put some fertilizer on the very top. So let's go ahead and plant our second batch here of our purple tomatoes. And again, we'll just kind of place these here, see what they look like as far as the spacing first. And so as an example, this might be one that you might consider to cut. Okay, I'm not going to, but again, you might consider cutting this one, because again, you can see all the different eyes, and this is a fairly large potato. And what you would want to do is you just kind of cut it right there and down in the middle. Again, you can even cut another piece there. But again, that just gives you more of the potatoes, and the more potatoes that you have as you're starting, then that's how many plants, which will subsequently give you more potatoes. So again, the same process. We're just going to take that, and we're putting that down here, and about 3 inches down, cover that completely. Really simple. Make sure that those eyes are pointing up. Put that down there, and do the same thing here. And we'll put one more right here. Okay, and that's it. We're gonna already sprinkled some fertilizer on top of this one also. We're gonna cover this with soil, another 6 or 8 inches up to this level here, and then the last 3 inches we'll put some, once the plants start to peek out through the soil, we'll go ahead and put some mulch on top of that, or we might put a little bit of a thin layer of mulch. That way we allow that to stay moist. Okay, so we'll finish that up. So I have my own mixture of potting soil that I put in this bag, and what I've done, put a little perlite in there, I put a little bit of peat moss in there, compost, and we're just going to fill this up. So what I do is I make my own soil, and then I kind of recycle these bags, kind of keeps them well in there. So that's pretty much there, and then we'll do the same thing here. And we obviously need a little bit more, so I'll grab some more soil. But essentially that's what you're going to do. At the end, I might put a little bit of more perlite in there. The perlite is going to help absorb water and moisture, but it's also going to give it a little bit more loamy feeling and lighter lighter soil. So I'm gonna just kind of mix that in here a little bit. And then once we've done this now, we're pretty much done, okay? So now I have my soil. I'm gonna put maybe about another inch or so in there. But at the end now, what you're gonna do is you're just gonna sprinkle, again, one or two handfuls of your organic granular fertilizer. Mix that in a little bit, and you're all set. So we're gonna put another one handful, maybe two handfuls here. Mix that in. Once we mix that in, I'll just show you a little example. You can use any kind of compost. I'm using just some straw, and you can put 3 to 4 inches of the straw on top. That'll help maintain the moisture, keep the moisture inside your containers. Remember, they have drainage so that if it does rain outside, and it'll go ahead and drain well. And that's essentially what you're going to do. I also like to use shredded paper, and I'll show you what I do with that. I use shredded paper for a lot of my compost. I get it at the office, and essentially what happens is it is it's paper, and I will sometimes put a light thin layer of that also again adds some additional organic material or component to your soil. And I'll put a little bit of that on there. Then I'll go ahead and I'll put my other mulch. In this case, we're using the straw, and we'll put 3 to 4 inches of that on there. And then that's how I'll have my containers in most of my garden beds. I'll also put this in my garden bed, my raised garden bed. And what that does is that, again, adds more organic material to your soil, and allows it to grow. So that's, once you do that, then you're going to water that in really well. And once you kind of water it, keep it moist. You don't want it to dry out completely, but you do want to keep it moist throughout the growing season. And in about 70 days or so, you're going to see, before 70 days, you're going to start seeing some growth, some green plants coming up, peeking up. And once they grow, again, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I will post the updates on the potatoes, and we'll have a comprehensive guide. But you'll see that once the potato grow, then they'll start to die off and start to brown in about 70 days or so, and then that's when you're gonna go ahead and harvest the potatoes. So it's always fun to figure out what's going on and growing on in these root vegetables down below. So we'll see, so subscribe to the channel, and you'll be able to see the harvest with me. We'll do it, maybe we'll even do a live one. So that's how easy it is to plant potatoes in containers. So if you are interested in planting potatoes, again, subscribe to the channel, and you'll also see how the process comes when they start to grow, and then we'll also harvest them and in a separate video. So be sure to subscribe, and if you like the content of this video, please press that like button for me. And last thing is, remember, just like with any of your container or your vegetable garden plants, 70 days for these potatoes from today, when we're planting in February, in the middle of February, 70 days from now, we're going to harvest them. You can do what we call successive planting. The successive planting is maybe in another 2 weeks, you can plant some more potatoes. You can do that in another month or so. As long as you're counting back from the first frost in the fall, 70 days before, you essentially are going to be able to plant and have potatoes over that growing season. So just keep in mind the 70 days, that's all you're going to have to do to plant your potatoes. So in another month or so, if I got another spare container somewhere, I'm going to plant some more potatoes. And again, you can do that with your tomatoes, you can do that with your peppers, so that way you're not getting all, for example, cucumbers. I'm not getting just a whole bunch of cucumbers and then that's it. So you can plant them in 2-week or 3-week sessions. I have a great video on when I planted some green beans in July. Again, I'll link that below. But again, you know, you can plant pretty much depending on your growing area and your season. You can plant a lot during the year and not just in the spring. So keep that in mind. So again, if you learned something, please hit the like button. And if you're growing potatoes this year, put a comment below and check out the links that I put in the description box for all the different videos that we talked about today in this video on planting potatoes in containers. Until next time, happy gardening.